negotiating table. The United States and Canada set to resume NAFTA talks today when Canadian Foreign Minister Chrystia Freeland meets with U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer. The president signaled over the weekend that he would be willing to move on without Canada in a new NAFTA agreement. Joining us now, senior fellow at the National Taxpayers Union, Mattie Duppler. Mattie, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning.
What are you expecting out of the two sides today?
Well, I don't think it's surprising that we're here this week negotiating with Canada and Mexico after the self-imposed deadline from Mexico and the United States went whizzing by last week. This is really the first time we see Canada thinking they have leverage, only because that deadline now is gone. Because it's unlikely Canada will be able to alter the actual substance of the deal. This is something that they walked away from 2 months ago. We haven't had representation from our northern neighbors at the table for those intervening months. And Mexico and the United States know exactly what they want out of this deal. So for Canada to walk in now and make any demands, I think we know exactly how the administration would characterize that, which simply is that they're not negotiating in good faith, they don't know where to go from here, and so it's unlikely that we'll see Canada be able to emerge. Now, remember that Prime Minister Trudeau is in election cycle now. He's got a year until he has to stand for election once again. So how does he claim victory in these negotiations? I don't think that's quite clear.
Bob Nardell, what do you think?
Yeah, so Mattie, tell me, what are the biggest issues there? We were talking earlier about dairy. You know, my experience dealing with Canada was lumber coming through. I mean, what do you think the biggest areas of opportunity for breaking this logjam and moving forward? Well, what does Canada want? What do we need?
Right. Well, softwood lumber, of course, is one of the biggest sticking points between the United States and Canada when it comes to these trade negotiations. So Canada has said they need to maintain the dispute resolution that's in place right now, Chapter 19.
Yes.
The United States has said they want to walk away from that.
Why would the United States want to walk away from that?
Well, simply because it's not, the United States has viewed this as not a fair way to negotiate different disagreements.
Where other partners in any trade deal can say, no, we're not going to follow this. We're going to challenge this tariff.
Right, exactly right. And there's other dispute resolutions, as I understand it, in the new framework that would take the place of Chapter 19. So it's not to say that there wouldn't be an environment in which Canada and the United States could negotiate conflicts like that. But the question of whether or not Chapter 19 serves the interests of the United States and Canada is certainly one that Canada has a different view on than the United States. The United States has talked a lot about access to the dairy markets in Canada. Canada has a highly restricted dairy system, quota system, not unlike a lot of what we have here in the United States, where it's extremely restricted as to what the movement of dairy can be between partners. But you know, when you look at the importance of Canada and Mexico, the truly important thing here is how highly integrated all of our industries are across Canada, Mexico, and the United States. Those supply chains have had years in the making that need to continue to be preserved, so there's not a lot of disruption for American companies here.
Yeah, I know from, again, my Chrysler experience, if you do something on car tariffs, you've got all of the Dodge products, the Charger, the Challenger, the 300, and the minivan are all produced in Canada.
Correct.
So it would have a major impact on Chrysler.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So, Mattie, when you see this negotiating back and forth, ultimately, isn't this going to come down to an agreement? I mean, doesn't Canada need the U.S., the U.S. needs Mexico? We all need each other. So somehow, some way, we're going to work out a deal that everyone's going to give in a little bit, everyone's going to take a little bit, and we're going to have some sort of an agreement.
Seems like that's what the markets are thinking.
Well, economically, that's certainly true. And those market observers are saying, I think we'll see a deal because we've seen at least movement. Now, remember, 2 years ago, when President Trump was elected, he had said repeatedly he was getting rid of NAFTA and it would be gone. Right. We're here 2 years later, we're still negotiating over NAFTA. So I think that's a good sign. But now it comes down to politics. The president, of course, is closing on the midterms here. We had an election in Mexico where the new president will be taking over in December, and he has said he wants a NAFTA deal done. And that remaining question is in Canada with Prime Minister Trudeau standing for election in a year. How does he claim victory now?
Speaking of, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that the new deadline seems to be September 30th. That's when, according to U.S. law, the Trump administration needs to make public the final text for a trade pact so it can be signed by November 30th when Mexico's leader, the current leader, Peña Nieto, leaves office. So September 30th is your new working deadline.
And maybe that's a good thing, given that now we see there's more time. You mentioned politics. What politics yesterday? Judge Brett Kavanaugh's